Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hi, and welcome to the New Warehouse Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Lawton. I'm here today. We're going to talk to Tim Wills, who works with Peak-Ryzex. Peak-Ryzex provides supply chain technology solutions. Tim is their chief marketing officer, and we're going to talk about some trends that he's seeing and that Peak-Ryzex is seeing in the supply chain space, including some emerging technologies. We're going to dive a little into that, and Tim's going to tell us what he's seeing out there, and then also how he's seeing their customers kind of work with these trends as well, and how he's seeing them develop in the supply chain. So, Tim, welcome to the show. How are you?
Very well, Kevin. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Happy to have you. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about, I guess, yourself, and also tell us about Peak-Ryzex and what you guys actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with the company and then just do a brief sort of bio of me and some of my responsibilities here with the company. But Peak-Ryzex, we've been around for quite a while. We've been around since 1981. As you mentioned, Kevin, we are a provider of end-to-end digital supply chain and logistics solutions. We have about 500 employees spread between North America and Europe, about 6,000 customers, we're proud to call over 60% of the Fortune 500 companies our customers. These are customers that have very significant warehouse, distribution, and logistics networks, very high-velocity supply chains. So I know hopefully very relevant to all the listeners of the podcast here. Definitely. Some of our strategic partners, we're strategic partners with the likes of Zebra Technologies and Honeywell, Samsung, Panasonic, the major wireless carriers, and lots of other technology and ecosystem partners. So that's kind of our organization. As you mentioned, I'm our chief marketing officer, so I am responsible for our corporate marketing. I'm responsible for our business strategy. Also, I'm responsible for bringing new offerings to market for our customers to help their supply chains run more efficiently, which I know is some of the discussion we'll be having today.
Definitely. So it sounds very interesting. So, it sounds like you're really in the position to kind of talk about these trends, because I'm sure you're seeing them firsthand as you work with your customers and you try to provide them with these new solutions. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, some of these trends that you're seeing out there and how they're relating to the supply chain, and how you guys are reacting, and how your customers are also reacting to them.
Yeah, definitely will. The first mega trend that we're seeing is the impact that e-commerce is having on supply chain and logistics. And I was just reviewing a study that was recently commissioned by Zebra Technologies, which was interviewing supply chain companies all over the world, and some of the results were just staggering in terms of what e-commerce will continue to do as we move forward in terms of sort of sales volume. So some of the statistics that I took note of is that global e-commerce sales will reach $4.479 trillion by 2021. Yeah, which is about 140% increase from where it was just 3 years ago.
That's crazy.
That gives you some idea of how dramatic e-commerce volumes are having in today's landscape, and what we're seeing is that's obviously creating a lot of pressure on our customers' supply chains. This concept of omni-channel fulfillment. So how do you fulfill those goods from e-commerce is a common conversation. Is it a traditional method through the distribution center to the retailer? Is it a direct ship from the distribution center to the end user?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a buy online, pick up in store, in the retail store type of setup? So our customers that are in or around e-commerce, consumer goods, those types of industries are really trying to figure out, how to best set up their omni-channel landscape to handle this dramatic shift in volumes and each shipment, small parcel shipments, which is moving further and further away from the days of lots of skidded goods together into individual orders, and that certainly has a lot of complexity. So basically, it's all driven from what I would call the "I want it now" gratification mindset that we're all in as consumers, where we want to order something now and we want it delivered instantaneously, and that's really what's creating a lot of this pressure on our customers' supply chains.
Definitely, yeah, and I see it even when you're talking. I'm thinking about myself and my own personal consumer habits and how much I've increased the amount of things I order online just out of convenience. And, the service levels have improved so much dramatically that, it's not like you're waiting 10 days for anything anymore, really. So it really is something that's improving. And like you said, it's putting more pressure on supply chains to perform at even a higher level. So what are you seeing? You mentioned about, omnichannel and which type of direction is the company going now. I've been seeing more and more businesses, like you mentioned, doing like the in-store pickup or curbside pickup. How are you seeing that being received, I guess, by the companies that are implementing it, and is it actually being successful for them? Because it still has kind of a layer of a bit of inconvenience for the consumer because they actually have to go to the store still.
It is such a great question and a great point, and I don't know that I'm the perfect end consumer to model here, because the last thing I want to do is go into a retail store to pick up what I ordered.
Yeah.
So I'm one that prefers to order and order it on Amazon, and 2 days later it appears at my home. And fortunately, we don't have a high degree of theft or things disappearing when things are dropped off. Maybe other areas do, but there is certainly a group of consumers that do prefer to go into the retail store, and perhaps maybe it's clothing or shoes or something that requires you to try it on, and maybe you ordered multiple goods with multiple sizes, and you're going in and you're trying them on, and then you're not purchasing those that didn't fit. So I think that's one use case, and certainly the retailers love it if they're able to drive traffic to their store by having someone want to pick up an e-commerce order, an online order in the store. That's sort of utopia for a retailer.
Yeah.
To have someone come into their store. So I've seen this mixed. Consumer preferences are all over the board. There's certainly the group that are like me and prefer home delivery, but there's others that do like to go into the retail store for all those reasons, and perhaps there's some other things that they need to sort of evaluate buying while they're there as well. So I think for those retailers that have moved to a buy online, pick up in store, I think those results seem to be very favorable in terms of driving traffic in the store and driving sales in the store. The trend that I probably see even more, though, and this is tied into one of the other trends we'll talk about in terms of inventory management.
Yeah.
There's this whole sort of omni-channel paradigm of moving from an e-commerce order, being shipped from a distribution center to the store for a consumer to go pick it up. How about picking it from the inventory in the store? If that good is in the store in the same zip code that end customer is in, now retailers need to almost think about their store as a mini fulfillment or distribution center, which means that, why ship from your DC that could be, several states away? Why not pick right from your in-store inventory to fulfill that request? Shorter turnaround times, less costly, but that necessitates high levels of inventory accuracy, which we're still seeing inventory accuracy levels in aggregate in retail no more than 65 to 70%, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult to execute on that strategy when your inventory levels are not higher than that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up, because I was actually going to ask you, do you think that you see in stores like the actual retail space getting smaller and the stockroom getting bigger as they do more like in-store pickup or fulfillment from retailers?
Yes, I think the retail landscape is changing dramatically. I'd say that square footage, if you will, of stores is certainly decreasing, and the back office functions are increasing due to the demands of e-commerce and the customer experience. The other aspect of this that's sort of fascinating is, again, you and I, as examples of consumers that order something and want it, waiting 2 days is starting to seem to be a bit much these days. And
2 days is forever.
Yeah, it is. And think about that if you're a customer that has to figure out the strategy on how to get these goods delivered, in some cases in hours, right? I mean, you can't put a distribution center or a warehouse in every pocket of the country. But what you do have, if you're a retailer, likely is a very large store network.
Yeah.
So now if you're able to increase your inventory accuracy in the store and then use one of these emergent shipping or logistics options to deliver that good shortly after it's ordered on online, then you're onto something in terms of being in alignment with differentiating and delivering on the promise of this, instant gratification sort of culture that we're in. And there's so many different options that we've seen begin to emerge out there in this transportation and logistics space. I mean, just to name a few that I've seen being evaluated or put in place are, there could be perhaps a dedicated delivery person or a team that's assigned. You could have a fleet of vehicles that are delivering it, or your store staff, maybe. Perhaps in urban areas, you could have bicycle couriers delivering your goods once they're ordered online and pulling from the inventory in your stores. And there's others, right? There's crowdsourcing models. There, like an Uber. There's autonomous and semi-autonomous delivery vehicles that are beginning to emerge. In some pockets and rural areas, there's drone delivery that's occurring as well. So all these delivery mechanisms are beginning to surface as a way to deliver on this instant gratification mindset, all because of what e-commerce has done to change that whole shopping experience.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to see some of the things that are coming out, and it'd be interesting to see, which ones stick and which ones are really like the future and will survive. I mean, at some point we're probably going to be able to teleport items right into our house, I'm hoping, right? That'll be the true instant gratification.
I tell you, and it's hard what the future will hold, but it's even evidence in just the proliferation of the food delivery. I mean, the DoorDashes of the world and the way that you can get food delivered to your home in less than an hour from all the major, fast food chains and area restaurants. I mean, that's really exploded here just in the last year or two. So I think that's, again, just additional evidence that this is a emergent area in terms of, consumer preference or consumers' needs these days, and how it really is putting a lot of pressure on customers to deliver on those lofty expectations that we all have as consumers.
Definitely.
I think the other thing in terms of a trend, and it's probably more on the challenge side, is returns and what's often termed reverse logistics. So I was looking at some worldwide figures the other day, and because of the $4.5 trillion in sales that e-commerce will generate worldwide, there'll be an estimated $642 billion in returns each year, based on that huge amount of revenue and that's being generated by e-commerce. So all of those goods need to then go reverse back to the point of origin or to some third party to sort of remediate and inventory and catalog and repost all of those goods that are coming back in, all the reason codes in terms of why they're coming back and where do they go back into inventory based on the shape and status that they're in. That is absolutely sort of another major trend out there, also a challenge that e-commerce is posing.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes total sense because, people are buying more things without really seeing them in person or touching them. So I'm sure, I guess maybe you would think that the consumer would become more careful with their online purchase, but people are, buying almost everything. I know some people that they really don't go to the store anymore. Everything they do is online. So yeah, I could definitely see that trending upward. And so what do you think is the trend in terms of what companies are doing? Like, are they doing reverse logistics in-house, or is it more of a trend to go third party? I mean, I know for myself from experience, I manage a returns department now, and returns it's a nightmare. It's a mess. So what are you seeing in terms of that? Do you see like your customers are looking to put in different solutions for in-house, or do you see them more about using third party?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
That's a great question. I hard to put a percentage to it. I'd probably split it right down the middle. I think I'm seeing 50-50. 50% is ensuring the proper, internally, ensuring the proper process and technologies are in place to handle the returns into the existing supply chain or infrastructure. The other half are saying there's so much demand on the outbound side of goods shipping from the DC that I don't want the returns coming into that same facility because of the high volumes there and the complexity sort of intermingling those two. So that's the group or the contingent that is looking to get that completely off their plate and move to a third party. So it does seem to be mixed right now, and where our customers are leaning in terms of the strategy for handling these returns and reverse logistics.
Definitely, yeah. It'll be interesting to see if a reverse logistics kind of industry has like a little boom too as returns start to pick up and people maybe move more towards the third party handling it. So you mentioned a little bit earlier about how important and significant inventory accuracy is going to be as we move towards these different styles of fulfilling e-commerce orders. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that, and what types of trends you're seeing companies get into in terms of improving their inventory accuracy, and just how important it is.
Yeah, and I'll give you a couple of statistics that I found interesting when I was looking at this supply chain and logistics vision study that our partner Zebra had conducted. They polled the end users as part of the study, and they asked where their inventory accuracy was today, and then where do they believe it needed to be. I believe it was in 3 or 4 years' time to handle the influx of volumes that they're seeing largely from e-commerce and in their business. So in the T&L segment, the transportation and logistics segment, those respondents said that they were at about 69% inventory accuracy rates. And again, in order to handle the rise of omni-channel logistics, as we've been talking about, they estimated that in a few years they'd have to be at least at 79%, so a 10% improvement from where they are today. Manufacturing or manufacturing distribution center, supply chain are at 66%, so a little bit lower than their T&L counterparts, and they also had a 10% up to 76% type of threshold in the next couple of years. And then retail, as I mentioned previously, was at about 65%. This is retail in-store inventory accuracy, and they had a little bit less. They had about an 8% increase to 73% to be able to see a viable path to having inventory accuracy levels to really kick off or get some of these omni-channel, emergent omni-channel strategies moving. So I thought that was interesting, and the same study pointed out that 55% of the organizations surveyed were still using pen and paper or manual data entry procedures in and around the supply chain. So I thought to myself, well, no wonder that there's still inventory, management challenges. If we're still in a manual world, and manual processes are prone to errors and they're prone to inefficiencies, and those two seem to, sort of sync up for me in terms of there's part of the answer, which is, technology and automation and WMS, inventory management systems, all those things that need to be in place to give you a higher degree of visibility into inventory levels.
Definitely, yeah. And I don't know if you could hear me cringe when you said pen and paper, but I'm an inventory control manager myself, so thinking about having to keep track of everything pen and paper and do all that is, I know how much of a nightmare that can be. I'm surprised actually to hear what the averages were on the inventory accuracy. It sounds pretty low. So I would think that, in terms of accuracy, like we'd be looking at more like 90% or more to really be to drive that optimization.
You would think so, and the study certainly included very large, some of the largest corporations in the world and their supply chains down to the smaller mid-market companies. So some of the smaller, maybe less progressive companies may have pulled that number down. Maybe some of the larger best-in-class companies were higher, but that's the average. So, that certainly shows that there is an issue still out there on the inventory side of really executing on a omni-channel strategy that's going to work with what we're seeing today. I think the other interesting thing, and we talked a little bit about at the beginning of the podcast here about technologies and emerging technologies. The study went on to talk a little bit about the different categories of sort of more mature technologies and what is their use today, and what do you expect the increase of that technology to be in your supply chain, say over the next 8 or 9 years. And I'll just run through these real quick because I thought this was interesting too, and we definitely saw an appreciable difference in the adoption of core barcoding and other mature technologies in the supply chain setting over that period of time. So there was at least a recognition for this inventory management issue, the increase in package volumes, visibility that some of these mature technologies are indeed on the radar. So rugged handheld computers with integrated scanning, about 64% or so today, up to the high 90s in the next several years. Barcode printing from 49% to the 90s, wearable mobile computers from 44% to the 90s, RFID technology from 33% today, one of the lower ones in the survey, up to over 90% in the next 8 or 9 years. So again, it does show that there's technology is on the radar of the supply chain customer base as an answer, or driving more adoption, eliminating more pen and paper manual processes. Certainly there's a recognition of that as the key. And I think, again, a lot of that on the lower end of adoption tends to be the SMB supply chain customers who are, don't have the budgets or the capital budgets to invest in technology like the larger corporations do. And I think they're seeing that that's part of the way to get automated, to begin to have a supply chain so it can scale and they can improve their operational efficiencies.
Definitely, yeah. And it'd be interesting to see how more technologies become more prevalent and the price comes down, how, those smaller businesses like you mentioned start to adopt them. It'd be interesting to see how that goes. And I'm sure, as some of them adapt and adapt to the new technology, then you may see some of those small businesses become big businesses just from automating and kind of improving their efficiency on the supply chain side.
Yeah, that's right. And I had a really interesting experience in the last couple of days. I was in a 150,000 square foot warehouse just yesterday, and I was doing a walkthrough, and there were a lot of employees working. Everyone was busy, but they were all using technologies that I just mentioned. There were forklifts, and there were forklift-mounted terminals with scanners on it. There were wrist-mount scanners on it so they could pick and be efficient. All of that, but there were a lot of people using technology but being very efficient in what they're doing. And then I talked to a colleague who was in a 3 million square facility, so, 20-some times larger than what I was in. Yeah. He said the most striking thing was how automated it was and how few actual employees he saw in walking that facility. So it again shows you everything was automated. There were robots picking. There was rarely a person in there. You hear about dark warehouses. Yeah. That's what he experienced in that major tier one. Barely any people, robots, automation, material handling equipment, doing all of the high volume work with a couple of employees doing the exception-based work, the things that were pushed out for QA. And in the smaller warehouse I were in, lots of people, yes, using technology, but lots of people. Yeah. So it's just a stark contrast, I think, between the larger companies and their ability to spend money on automation and perhaps some of the smaller companies that are still in the, barcode adoption, RFID adoption, barcode printing phase of their life cycle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think, too, sometimes, the automation and things like you mentioned, like robotics and stuff, investing in that it's a big investment. And, I think aside from maybe lack of capital to do something like that, I think, the other thought is probably on the small business side is like, is this the technology that, we're going to stick to? Because probably if they have to make a decision, they're going to have to live with it for quite some time. So it's interesting to see that. Now, on that subject, what do you see from your customers in terms of like what are customers really asking for right now? Like what's the hot thing, I guess, that customers are really into?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if I look, again, some of our customers are some of the largest corporations and in North America, some of the more complex supply chains. And I would say, they're very well automated with what I would call auto ID technologies, right? Barcode systems, wireless systems, all of that. So they're the companies that do have the larger budgets, the larger IT teams to be out on the bleeding edge of what's next. So they're, in fact, looking for what's next. What technology is emerging that will help them, stay ahead of these trends and get a leg up on their competition and continue to increase operational efficiency. So I probably put them in, and we could call these technologies disruptors, if you will, right? They're emerging. They're starting to be use cases for them. They're starting to be pilots. But I put them in sort of the early stage, advancing stage, and mainstream stage. And certainly mainstream are some of the technologies we've already talked about in terms of barcoding and auto ID. But I think one of the areas that we're seeing tremendous activity in, and I'll call it adoption in, is analytics and data. So you already are fairly well technology enabled, right, with core technologies, which means you're scanning your inventory, you're using barcoding, you're generating massive amounts of data. So now being able to use advanced analytics to actually decipher what that data means, what it's telling you, getting to more predictive or prescriptive outputs of that data so you can get out ahead of trends and make decisions based on that data is probably one of the single most prevalent emergent areas that I'm seeing our customers, adopt or really dig into their data to help them, make more informed business decisions about their supply chain as they move forward. Some of the areas, I guess, that are advancing, I mentioned the use case I saw yesterday, but certainly the more efficient the workforce can be, the better. We know that, but if you think about wearable mobile technology, so if you think about the throughput through a warehouse increasing dramatically because of e-commerce, the more that your hands can be free, the more that your workforce doesn't have to stop and grab their barcode device and all of those types of things. So wearable mobile technology, I think, is certainly advancing and gaining steam out there. And again, yesterday I saw that in use in a big way across all different workflows in the warehouse. So that seemed to be gaining steam. And then I'd say earlier stage are probably things like blockchain, augmented reality, drones, robots to a degree. I know there's a high use of robotics in manufacturing and sort of the higher end warehouses and distribution centers, but some elements are still emerging. Using autonomous robots for inventory management or using drones for inventory management. Those things seem to continue to be tested and piloted and vetted in terms of being new emergent technologies to look at as well. So those are some of the things that we've seen. I don't know that there's any one silver bullet right now. I tend to think it's probably an amalgamation of these different technologies that are going to converge to really drive the next generation supply chain in terms of digitization of the supply chain and driving further efficiencies. But early days, certainly for a number of these, and we're just trying to stay close to our customers to understand their business challenges and which of these technologies in combination with each other will help meet those business needs and strategies that they have. But there's challenges, there's challenges with new technologies. I mean, there's some difficulty in deploying new technology. There's integration, with host systems. There's management challenges with new technology, and how do our customers, coordinate those efforts with internal resources that are already very busy with other initiatives, and how do you staff to that? And is there really proven ROI out there that's documented that validates the investment? That's certainly another thing that can be challenging with new technology. There's training considerations whenever you adopt new technology that's a bit emergent and different. And if you have
a big deal.
If you have a high turnover rate or seasonal workers, training can become an issue. Safety, in some ways, could also become an issue with new technology. I know there were some fairly high-moving vehicles buzzing around the warehouse I was walking through yesterday, and yes, they were beeping their horn, but wow, stand to the side or you're going to get run over. So,
they can move.
They can move. So just imagine other types of emerging technology at play in the warehouse and the safety concerns, and in some cases there may even be some regulatory issues with some of these technologies as well that need to be thought through. So lots of challenges with new technology. That's certainly something that's been overcome in the past as new technologies have been deployed. But it seems like there's more emerging than I've ever seen, and I've been in the industry for about 20 years now. More types of technology, more emergent business models and ways of doing business and thinking about technology. So there's a lot going on here. So it's definitely an exciting time, especially to be in my position to try to figure out, right, what are the big bets to make for our customers here in terms of these new and emerging technologies as we move forward.
Definitely. So speaking of your customers, if somebody was interested in working with you, and what type of solution should they be in the market for if they wanted to reach out to you guys?
Well, it depends on where the customer is in their technology adoption life cycle. So, if anyone listening to the podcast here still is running a warehouse or a distribution center and they're using pen and paper or manual processes,
please stop right now.
I would certainly, as you live every day, I'm sure I would certainly encourage you to look at barcoding technology in terms of a better way to displace those manual processes. There's no doubt about it. If you are fairly well adopted in barcode technology today in your warehouse or DC, I would recommend evaluating RFID technology, especially in the case of high-value asset tracking. Right? A little bit divergent from inventory tracking, but we're seeing RFID be used more and more to track high-value assets, check in, check out of those assets through key choke points in the operation, really to drive that whole closed-loop accountability. So that's certainly a logical place to look. And if you've adopted barcoding and you've adopted RFID, there's other technologies like voice-based solutions. So if you're using barcoding for your picking operations today and you're seeing volumes pick up, voice technology is also a great solution to help increase the efficiency of your workforce, again, because you're eyes free and hands free and can focus on your work rather than the stop and start nature of barcode scanning. So you can see how you go from manual to barcoding to sort of RFID to voice. And then, if you checked all those boxes, I would recommend evaluating some of these emerging technologies that we've discussed as well.
All right. Interesting. So, Tim, how can someone find out more about Peak-Ryzex?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. I mean, certainly our website, www.peak-ryzex.com, is a great way to see, our portfolio and case studies and the different use cases and emerging technologies that we have there. That certainly will give you the highest level view of our portfolio and what some of our other customers have implemented and the business benefits there. Or if you prefer to talk to one of our account managers and explore any of these topics perhaps that we talked about today, you could also call us at 888-275-7325. On the menu there, you can push the option for our account management or sales team, and they certainly can help guide you to the right solution based on your individual business challenges as well. So those are probably the easiest two ways to get in touch with us.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I'll post all that information as well on the website at thenewwarehouse.com. So, Tim, thanks so much for being on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.